Welcome to the kickoff of the new Obscure Histories interview series. Today, we're coming to you from Azerbaijan and my Garrett Attic recording studio. We are excited to have Dr. Farit Shafayev join us from the Center of Analysis of International Relations in Azerbaijan, where he is the chairman. Today, we are going to be discussing his work on the mystery of the Caucasian Albanian language, which was lost to history and only recently rediscovered. Welcome, Dr. Shafayev. We are so happy to have you join us today.
Thank you for the invitation and thank you for arranging this meeting.
Absolutely. We're delighted to have you. So tell us about yourself, your background, your education, your professional work.
My professional training in history, I did 5-year study in history in Baku State University in Azerbaijan. I did also PhD in history in Canada in Carleton University. And in addition, I did a Master of Public Administration in Harvard University Kandel School of Government. I worked for government for 23 years. I was a diplomat. And my last posting was in Czechia, Czech Republic. I returned 3 years ago, and now I'm chairing think tank. But mostly I'm dealing right now with international affairs, the modern politics, regional issues, some global issues. But because of my professional background, history, I found that there are a lot of markers, in history, in terms of which related to the modern statehood, related to the modern problems too, like the ethnic conflicts, and I decided to look upon some thorny, some moot issues, disputed issues, which is indeed very important marker for today's ethnic and state identity.
Definitely need to think about where people come from, where their cultural allegiances are, and then how those can all work together in a state. Yeah. So take us through the story of how it was discovered, because it ends up in Mount Sinai. That's quite a world away.
Yeah, basically, and I would like to tell the readers to warn from the beginning, we're not speaking about European Albania. We're speaking about Albania in the Caucasus, which the name actually, Albania is not the correct name in the Albanian language. It was called Aluang or Agwang, but through the history, because the Greek authors, ancient Greek authors, has written about about Albania. They modified the name into Albania, so it should not be confused with European Albania. Just not to complicate the stuff. That's why we call it Caucasian Albania, not Aluang, because otherwise it will be more complicated. So it's a separate name now, Caucasian Albania. So the first discovery was actually in 1930s, also by a Georgian scholar Ilya Buladze, who worked in the Armenian archives. It's called Matandaran, and he found just a script, and then. In different parts of Azerbaijan, we found some of them on the stones, or let's say on the churches, some of the remnants of the script of the Caucasian Albania. Basically, the historiography of Caucasian Albania began in 20th century, from 1930s. But what was very important, because some scholars even questioned whether Caucasian Albania existed or what was the significance of this state, of this historical formation. In 1970s, another Georgian scholar, Zaza Alexidze, he was working in Egypt in Mount Sinai monastery, and he was working on his own subject about the Georgian scripts, Georgian alphabet, some, the manuscripts of Georgian language in Egypt. And then he suddenly found one of the chambers, which was unfortunately destroyed by fire. And when he was doing the research, he found the script, and it looked similar to the Georgian, but also to Armenian, because those scripts were written by and invented by the person, by Armenian Mr. Mashtots. And he found the third one, and he started his research in 90s. He announced about his discovery that this script is neither Georgian nor Armenian. It's the completely different script which belongs to the Caucasian Albania. So that was really, I would say, for our region, for history of our countries, it was sort of the seismic discovery, very, milestone in the historiography of Caucasian Albania. But I was also puzzled by the question that why we cannot find scripts, alphabets, the manuscripts here in the Caucasus, in the places, in original place. Here I discovered a lot of, indeed, problems with historiography, the peculiar history of Caucasian Albania.
So how did you come across the information about the Caucasian Albanian language?
We studied history in schools. So most of the people, people studying in Azerbaijan, they know about the Caucasian Albania. But it was kind of standard textbook. And I should tell you, like me personally, I was studying at the time when the Azerbaijan was part of the Soviet Union. And all studies, all writings, textbooks were controlled by the Soviet authorities. And we tried to really control what is allowed to tell, what should be controlled or banned. So after we got independence, all republics, we went through a period, unfortunately, of nationalism, ethnic conflicts, which still affects our everyday life. And probably here, after independence, we had freedom to speak about whatever we want. But I think this kind of conversation sometimes incited ethnic hatred, so something in history is buried under, the years, obscurity, the time which passed, but also buried under, unfortunately, nationalistic rhetoric. So I wanted really to reveal what happened with the Caucasian Albania, what was the state, its language, its alphabet. So that was the reason of my research.
Oh, it's fascinating. Did you do any work with Caucasian Albanian with your own graduate studies or your own undergraduate studies?
No, I did it later. My professional, when I was doing the undergraduate study, was more about the history of Turkic people, Turkic-speaking people, and my PhD dissertation was about the Russian Empire. But all this, by the way, related to the history of Azerbaijan, to the history of the Caucasian Albania, in a sense that, again, the topic of the history of the Caucasian Albania became very politically charged topic in our region, in both countries, in Azerbaijan, in Armenia. I'm speaking about South Caucasus, and even in Georgia, because indeed we, thanks to the Georgian scholars, they discovered relatively recently, in 70s, in 90s, the script, Caucasian Albanian script, which basically was disappeared from the region. And interestingly enough, we didn't almost find any remnants of the script, Caucasian Albanian language script alphabet in the Caucasus, but it was found in Egypt.
Well, I think it's so interesting that you wanted to find out why was it in Mount Sinai versus why you can't find it locally or in the region. Right.
So that's indeed a very puzzling and interesting question. And we have to look at the history of Caucasian Albania. It existed for several centuries, from BC until 8th century of AD. And the Caucasian Albania was conquered by Arabs, as they conquered the whole Caucasus in 8th century. The Caucasian Albania was one of the early states which adopted Christianity. And it was predominantly a Christian state. When Arabs conquered Caucasian Albania, most of the people were converted to Islam. They became Muslims. Their ancestors, some of the people, portion of the people of the current modern Azerbaijanis, they trace back their ancestry to the Caucasian Albania. As just to let you know, we currently speaking Turkic language. Right. Albanian language now basically survived only in one area in the center of Azerbaijan, and these people called Udi. And they are Christians. About 4,000 people only survived. They live now in Azerbaijan, and they speak the language which very close to the language of the manuscripts we found. So what happened? Why really we don't have here the scripts and manuscripts of Caucasian Albania? So the Albanians were Christian, and they had the two other ethnic groups in the Caucasus, Georgians and Armenians. They were also Christians. So when the Arabs conquered Caucasian Albania, most people were converted to Islam. But those who remained Christians, they naturally, in the Islamic environment, in Arab environment, they had very close interaction with Georgians or with Armenians. So over time, their church, Caucasian Albanian church, became subordinated to the Armenian church.
Sure.
And some of them also merged with the Georgians. So what happened, and indeed what we found in the Mount Sinai, actually, it's the manuscript, or it's called in English palimpsests. It's the what it means that something was written originally, and then it was washed out and written over it. So what we found that it was some in different parts of manuscripts, we found that it was the Albanian scripts which was washed out, and mostly it was written over with Armenian script, or in some instances also with Georgian. So because the church, Albanian church, it lost autonomy, it lost independence and became subordinated to the Armenian church. Over time, the Armenian, monks and other people working in church, they just erased the script and written with the Armenian one. So that question was studied by several scholars, and including some Georgians, the Russian scholars, and that's the reason where we didn't find any, let's say, meaningful manuscripts in original Albanian script in the Caucasus, but somehow it survived in Egypt, in Mount Sinai.
So there's the script. It's unique in that I think it has something like 52 letters. Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about the script itself, and also its relationship to now modern day Armenian and Georgian? Is there any resemblance at all, or is it very much a unique and sort of an artifact of a particular point in time?
What we know from the history that it's the one person, Mesrop Mashtots, who invented alphabet for Albanians, for Armenians, and for Georgians.
So he invented 3 different alphabets?
Yes. Those states in the Caucasus, Caucasian Albania, ancient Armenia, and Georgia, Iberia, it was called Iberia at that time. So it is 2 alphabets survived in modern Georgia and in modern Armenia. They're using their own script. But Caucasian Albania, because as I said, because it's subordination of its church, and because also the Arab conquest, and then subsequently there was a number of states on this territory of Azerbaijan, Caucasian Albanians disappeared, the language almost disappeared. As I said, only 4,000 people using the language was as close, modern Udi language is close to the ancient Albanian language. So that's indeed peculiar history that it did not survive in the region. But what is indeed interesting that Caucasian Albania and Albania has their own church up until the Russian conquest of the South Caucasus. So it survived through the Middle Ages. But they closely interacted with Armenian church, as I said, because it was subordinated during the Arab conquest to the Armenian church. So, but still, it had own religious center in Gandzasar, which is on the territory of Azerbaijan in Karabakh. But because the Karabakh became center of the conflict between modern Armenia and Azerbaijan, history of Caucasian Albania also became, unfortunately, the hostage of territorial claims and, ethnic conflict. For example, Armenian side, they claim that the Caucasian Albania had no significant statehood. It was mostly even the province of ancient Armenia. The Azerbaijani historians, they claim that Caucasian Albania was independent state. It has own church, etc. My personal view, indeed, I also believe that the Caucasian Albania was independent with its own attributes of statehood, its own church. But because of the Arab conquest, its church became very closely interacting with Armenian church. And it is natural, as I said, because they felt that their Christian preference in the environment or in the Islamic environment, they have to be closer and help each other. And when the Russians conquered the South Caucasus, the modern-day Azerbaijan, Armenia, where there was several Turkic-speaking kingdoms, they abolished independence of the Albanian church in Gandzasar, in Karabakh region, and fully subordinated everything to the Armenian church. So there are several stages why, Albanian script, Albanian language disappeared. But unfortunately, as I said, because of the conflict, because of the claims on the territory, everything related to the history of the Caucasian Albania is disputed. It's, it causes a lot of discussions, in charge with the politically charged language. And I think now we're moving towards the peace in the region, in the South Caucasus. Indeed, this is maybe the good opportunity from now on to look at historiography, at the history of Caucasian Albania from purely historical perspective, leaving aside all these, disputes.
Oh, sure. So you're thinking that the language itself has a way of perhaps becoming something of a peacemaker for people in the area. So that maybe because it's history of bringing people together, maybe it can also play a similar role in today's political situation.
Well, history probably the most difficult subject. We still, for example, look, the Second World War ended. Still, some Korean and Japanese historians we have dispute Chinese at that part of the world. In the Balkans, the war ended in 90s, but still, people and scholars there have some disagreements. But in the meantime, we can see some good examples in Europe. France and Germany were working together to sort out all these historical narratives. I think it's not easy. It's not, probably history should be put aside. Rather, we should concentrate on trade, economy, on some other stuff, which brings people together. But eventually, we have to come back to the history and make peace through history too, because otherwise it will be always kind of the sword of mind of the people, causing all these disputes and fights over the heritage, over the religion, and history.
Certainly. So maybe an obscure history of the Caucasian Albanian language has a way to start a conversation where people can talk about the history of the region and how it can maybe better inform political decisions today. Yes, as history being something that can bring people together as opposed to creating more divisions. So
absolutely, and I think you're doing a great job opening so many interesting pages of history, and that's one of the reasons when I, as a historian, I'm like browsing internet and I saw your site and was fascinated with so many interesting stories. Sometimes personal stories, sometimes it's about history of the countries. And indeed, I think it's the one place where the historians can meet and have really nice conversation.
Oh, well, we are delighted to hear that. I'm delighted to hear that. Thank you very much. We try very hard to make that sort of accessible to everyone and have it be interesting. So history is not something that's, dead and gone. It is living today and in multiple ways, and it can really illuminate some pretty important things. So with that, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a delight talking with you and learning more about Caucasian Albanian, the language. And hopefully we will, we'll have your post up and everyone can enjoy that. And we'll have additional links to more information. But thank you again, Farit, for talking with us today. It's been wonderful, and we'll keep track of your progress and how things are going in Azerbaijan. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me and arranging this meeting.